Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new to React or if you are diving deeper into the world of what it offers, today's video will be perfect for you. We're going to explore a very super useful React hook called useDeferredValue, and this is very great for improving your app's responsiveness and the user experience within your application. So let's break it down into a simple terms, and I will also show you some cool examples that will help you to understand it better. So let's get started. So in our first example here, we have just a simple input field, and when we type in, I want to search within some backend, for example. Okay, so I have here an input field where when I type, I have on change triggering, which updates my input state. Then I'm passing down that input state into another component, and this is where the heavy work is happened. So this component, what it does is just what this component does is that it reads that property we pass down the input, and then we have here a React hook called useEffect, which listens to the input field. So what happens is whenever this input field changes, this useEffect gets triggered. Okay, you can see here we have input field as a dependency of useEffect, which means every time input change, every time I'm typing a letter inside my input field, this useEffect will trigger behind the scene. And what it does is, first thing it's set up for us the searching to true, it's like a loading state, and then it trigger a function which is pretending to be like an API call for us. Okay, if I go to this function, it's just a way to mimic our heavy calculations, okay, with some delays. So all what we are doing is we are passing the input we type in, then we are triggering a promise. It's like we're pretending to have an API call. Then I'm setting time out to 2 seconds, then resolve it, okay? And while this one is happening, it's just what it does. It loops through an array of large data sets, and I set it up to this number right here, which is very big one. And I did another deep loop as well within each of that large data set too. So all what we're doing, we're looping, then we're checking if those characters exist within our array that we created up there. Okay, so this function here does a lot of heavy calculations behind the scene, and that triggers every time you type in your input field. Okay, and I'll show you here how this is lacking. So type, and you see first, second time. Now if I start deleting, my input field is not responsive immediately when I type the keyboard. Okay, it takes like a second or half second to respond to me again, and then I'll start again removing, then again start removing. See, it's stuck somewhere. Okay, even though I'm typing, my input field is not responding to me. It takes time, then it listens to my keyboard, which is a big issue for a user experience. You will have no user come into your application and just have patience to wait for your input field to render what they are typing on the keyboard. They'll just leave immediately. Okay, so the useDeferredValue help us to solve this issue, and it manages in a way that lets your app run smoothly, especially when it's doing some heavy lifting in the background. Okay, now let's solve this issue. It's very simple, it's very easy. I'll go back to my component here, and I'll import the hook called useDeferredValue. Okay, then what I will do, I'll create a constant called, for example, deferred input. You can call it anything you want, and I will call my hook useDeferredValue, and then I'll pass it the input value right here. Click save, and then now down in my components, I will not pass the actual input. I will pass down the deferred input. Okay, first let's test this visually, then I'll explain you how this is working behind the hood. Now again, I'll go type and start also deleting. So you can see even while searching and I'm trying to delete my numbers, I'm able to delete them. Okay, my items being shown slow, that's not a problem, but at least the user is able to write or delete whatever they want from the input field. Okay, I'll try again, and then again deleting, so I'm not stuck. As much I'm typing on my keyboard any key, it is visually triggering immediately. Okay, so the user does not have to wait to see what they are writing. So just keep in mind, the useDeferredValue does not really impact huge on the performance itself, but it just helps with the user experience and make sure that your app is not lagging behind when the user is interfering within your UI. Okay, now how does deferred value work behind the scene and make sure our input field still interactive and users still be able to type in it, even we are having these heavy calculations running behind the scene in the same time. Okay, to do so, best thing is again looking at our cancel logs or profiler. In this scenario, we can't use profiler, so we use cancel logs. So let me import our use effect hook. Okay, and I'll come here, I'll say use effect. I want this use effect to trigger every time my input field changes. Okay, because I want to listen to my input field change. And what I will do, I'll just cancel log the input and also the deferred input. Okay, so okay, now let's open our dev tool and let me hard reload. Okay, so you can see here I have two logs, and only reason why it's two logs because I'm using Next.js, so it's running in the server side and the client side, so just think that it's just one. Okay, so we have our input field, it starts on nothing, then deferred input, it is starting also on nothing. Okay, so both of them are empty strings. Now let me type in and then we'll look at the console. Okay, there we go. So you can see the first time I typed the number 9, the deferred input, it didn't change immediately, it's still an empty string. Okay, next time I type 8, so my deferred input was just 9. Okay, but my input is 98. Same for others. Okay, and this one I was not really typing very fast. Okay, I was a little bit slow. If I did very fast, you may even see like here's still nothing. Okay, and the reason why this happened is that the way the useDeferredValue works behind the scene is that it listens to your app. Okay, and while you are typing, what you're doing, you're triggering another hook. Okay, you're having some state managements happening behind, you're having some work going on behind. Okay, so deferred value says, okay, while there is something else happening, I will wait until that finishes, then I'll update the deferred input. Okay, so basically it's prioritizing other works going within your app over setting up the actual deferred input field. And if you're now asking yourself, okay, how long does React take to update this deferred input field? Okay, that means how much your React takes to trigger this useDeferredValue to update your input field. Well, the answer is it depends on the current workload of your app. React's main job is to keep your app feeling snappy and quick. Okay, so it will delay the update just enough to maintain responsiveness. Okay, to make sure the user is still able to interact with your application. It's like balancing speed and efficiency behind the scenes. Okay, so there's no actual time that you can set for it like for useDebounce, but it just waits enough for what it thinks it's until the app is ready. Okay, so the user is still able to interact with your UI. Now let's add some unit tests. I'll do some basic unit tests and I'll let the other combinations for you to play around with it, and I'll upload this project for you as a reference to GitHub if you want to take it down in your machine and play around with this. So what I have done here, in same root of my component, I just created another file for test, which is index.test.js, which is still empty. Okay, now let's go there, and first things first is that let's import the testing libraries we need. So we need render, we need fire event. Okay, and this one will help us to fire the event on the input field and simulate the user typing for us, and wait for, and this one we needed to, we want to simulate the input and see the result, we need a way to wait for until whatever things going behind the scene finish. And say from testing library / react. The other thing, of course, we need to import our component. Index. Okay. Now let's create description. So describe, and so we'll describe our test. And the first description will be for me to write the name of the component. I will say search component, and then arrow function where I'll write my test scenario. So test, then description of my test. I'll say renders search input and displays the search results. And because we are doing simulating like API calls behind the scene, so we have async calls, so I need to make my test also async. And then arrow function where I'll write all my tests now inside. Okay, so first thing I have to do is that to render my component into a visual DOM where I can access it and try to test it, and I'll extract some queries from it that will help me to find things. Okay, so I'll say const, I want to access the input field, which I use get by placeholder text. So get by placeholder text. Okay, and the placeholder is P is capital, this is capital, get, good. Okay, I'm just checking my spelling. The other thing, I want to find something by text, to find my element, and then query by text. And different is this one can find something which is immediately there in the DOM. Query means it will find while waiting. For example, the elements we are searching for, they will not appear immediately, right? But we know they will come at some point. So for that, we use query, not get. Then now I'll render my component. Search. First thing, let's check my input field exists. Okay, so check if input field in the document. And how you'll do that, we say const field input. Okay, and we use the get by placeholder text. Get by placeholder text equal, and if I go back here, this is my placeholder, so I need to find by the placeholder text. I'll copy this and add it there as parameter. Then I'll say expect that my input field, my field input actually, my field input to be in the document. Okay, so first I'm trying to make sure that my field is rendering and I can access it. Let me run my test, npm run test. And why I'm doing that, because in my package.json I have a test command here. Okay, now let's open up my test, and it seems green. It's happy with my test. You can see that. So passes. Now let's add more tests. And second thing now I want to do is simulate someone typing in my input field. So I use fire event dot change, because the input field has on change, and I'll pass the field input, that's the one I want to simulate the change, and then the value. So object target, and then I have another object inside called value. Then I'll just put the number 11, for example, or I'll just put item. That's fine. Now that should be a string because I'm trying to type something. The next thing now I want to do is that if you go back here, and when we type, we show a message called searching, which is here. Okay, so what I will go first, I want to say when I enter a value in my input field, I want that search text to be appearing in my visual, right? So I need to see if I can find it. So I say const searching message get by text. Okay, and I'll copy that text, searching, and now I have to expect that to be in documents, same we did in the lane 9, so I'll just copy that, but it's searching message. Okay, save, and my test will run automatically and my test passes. Great. Now let's do next step, where we want to wait and see if we can find the results. Okay, so I'll go here, and now I need to do a wait for, and because the wait for the wait will work, if you remember, we have it similar as an API call, which waits for 2 seconds first to run. Okay, so we have 2 seconds plus on top some work is doing behind the scene. Okay, so I need to add also some timer to this, and I'll have first my function, and then I'll have a second argument which is an object, and we'll have timeout. Okay, I'll set my timeout now to 4 seconds. Now inside my wait for, I'll try if I can find my result item, like here, item 11, item 110. So I'll again create a const called result item. So get by text again, and I'll see if I can find item, let's say space 11 for example. Okay, and let's expect again, that's my test now, expect that result item to be in the document. Save, and let's see if my test will pass. Yes, it worked. Great. Now let's see if when my tests show up, my results show up, that searching should disappear now. Okay, now what I will do, I'll come after the wait, and I will say expect, again same thing, this time query by text, and I will say searching. Okay, but this time I don't want to be in documents, so to be null. Let's run this test. And this one failed. And that's, of course, here I did a big mistake. I should be doing dot to be null, not comma. Let me save again, and this should now work. Great. Okay, so our test now is working. I want you to sit alone, pause this video, and try to see if you can add some more tests. And the more tests I want you to do is for this messaging, which is showing right here, updating UI in real time. Okay. If you're still wondering really what useDeferredValue is, let me add some more simple examples, explanation for you. Okay, now let's imagine that you are running a race and you got 2 tasks. One is to keep eye on your pet dog, and the other one is to finish your homework. Now your dog needs attention, but you also have to focus on your homework. This is where the useDeferredValue comes in very handy. Think of this useDeferredValue as your helper. When you use it, React knows that your homework, let's call it the main task, is more important for now. So instead of stopping everything to give attention to the dog, which could slow you down, React says, hey, let's finish the homework first, and then we will give some love to the dog later. Now, under the hood, React is keeping track of both tasks. When you are typing your search box, for example, React knows you are busy with that. But it also sees there is some heavy work to do, like finding search results. So it says, alright, I will update the search results when you are done typing. I won't interrupt you now because I know that may take me things slower. But why not just update everything right away then? Well, imagine if your homework had 1,000 math problems and every time you solve one, someone keeps asking about your dog. That would be annoying and distracting, right? So, useDeferredValue helps you avoid that distraction and keeps your app running smoothly by managing when to update things. So, in simple terms, useDeferredValue is like having a smart assistant that knows when to update things in your app without getting in your way. It keeps everything running smoothly, just like you're running your race without tripping over distractions. This analogy breaks down the concept of useDeferredValue in a relatable and easy to understand manner, making it accessible to viewers. So I hope this all makes sense with you. I hope this simple example of this race and with the dog and the homework also add up some understanding and not confusing. I think this is the end of our video today. If you are still having questions about useDeferredValue and how it can be different to use debounce or even use transition, just watch out my channel. I'll be pushing soon some videos that give a proper comparison between all these concepts. So stay tuned and I'll see you later in my next video.